Now, say something about Pat's book. It's Nearly 90. Am I correct, Pat?
Nearing.
Nearing 90. And I think she does 70 and 80, right?
She did 50, 60, 70,
Oh,
80, and now 90.
I missed it. So no matter what age you are.
I think she did 40. I think she's the one that said, I can't believe I'm 40 or something like that.
Is it pronounced Viorst? Viorst. And she's still with us at 89. So you want, and I'm going to turn it over to you now because I think you can tell more about us and the read. So everybody, welcome Pat Wisch.
Okay. Well, I'm so pleased to be doing this. I want to share with you that this feels like payback for me because I have been thoroughly enjoying Penn Village Reads, and I said, okay, it's your turn. And so here I am. And when I started to think about what I wanted to read, she came into my head. I am a psychologist, as I say now, not working for money anymore. I'm also a hospital chaplain. And my fame, and a lot of the people that know my name, is because I was director of a program at the Y, which is now not there anymore, at Broad and Pine. For a long time, I was director of the Institute of Awareness, which people who were part of that will tell you changed their lives. And I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time. So in 1986, having working there and I was still working there, I think I was, and having a private practice, I came upon a book called Necessary Losses, which just delighted me, educated me, informed me. And it was a book written by Judith Viorst, who I had known as a poet and a children's author. This book, Necessary Losses, explains complicated and profound psychological theories and issues in a way that is completely understandable to the audience that's reading her book. She trained in psychoanalysis at the Washington Psychoanalytic Institute. She does not practice as a therapist, but she is brilliant. And her books, her poetry book, particularly this one, I found, and I hope you'll agree with me, to be amusing and also touching. The whole issue of losses, I'm going to read you just a few lines from Necessary Losses before we go to the poem. She says, when we think of loss, we think of the loss, the death of people we love. But loss is a far more encompassing theme in our life, for we lose not only through death, but also by leaving and being left, by changing and letting go and moving on. And our losses include not only our separations and departures from those we love, but our conscious and unconscious losses of romantic dreams, impossible expectations, illusions of freedom and power, illusions of safety, and the loss of our own younger self. The self that thought it would always be unwrinkled and invulnerable and immortal. And so we go to Nearing 90 by Judith Viorst. I have chosen, of the many poems in here, those that I thought would be of interest to us. They're not, as some of her poems are very personal about her husband. One of my favorites is where she says, if you die before me, I'll kill you. This first poem I'm going to read is called What Happens. So while I was writing thank you notes for our guest towels, the fondue forks, and the other wedding presents, and while I was mastering Julia's coq au vin, and while I was discovering that I had married a man who didn't believe in entering checks in a checkbook, and while we were disagreeing about the cost of the couch, the color of the kitchen, being late, and the frequency of sex, and while we were having babies who immediately transferred us into besotted parents, and sleep-devoted deprived wrecks. So much for sex. And while I was doing carpools and station wagons and polyester, while beaded bell-bottom swingers were having a ball, and while I was being wifely, maternal, professional, and political, and wondering what was so great about having it all, and while he was asking, would it really kill me to be nice to his cousin, Arnie, to which my honest answer was, yes, it would. And while I was asking whether when he went overnight to Boston and didn't phone me, he was up to his ears in work or up to no good. And while I was going through my what's the meaning of it all, after all, midlife crisis, resolved with some therapy and an eyelid lift, and while we were deciding if we were ready to make the shift from ski vacations to Caribbean cruises, and while when the children were grown up and gone, and he had finally retired, and we were, for better or worse, alone at last. And while, as the years sped past, we found ourselves listening to more eulogies than symphonies. And while I drove him to specialists, and he drove me to specialists, and we kept each other warm when it was cold, what happened was we got oldish, and then older, and then even older than that. And then we got old. Trading places. You can't read the menu if you don't bring your glasses, nor will your hearing aid work with a dead battery. Once I had these conversations with my mother. Now my kids are having them with me. You only should come if you want to come. No pressure. You've got your own life to live. Go live it. Have fun. That's how my mother used to get me to visit. I can't believe that's what I just said to my son. This one is called, I Should Be Over This By Now. Though the state of the world, the well-being of my children, and whether my husband and I are doing okay, determine how contented I'm feeling on a given day, so I'm ashamed to admit does how much I weigh. I surely should be over this by now, considering that I'm a woman who holds decent values on matters like peace and justice and human rights, and therefore should not be obsessing over the utterly trivial fact that my thighs are straining against the seams of my tights, which they wouldn't if I weighed what I wanted to weigh. I certainly should be over this by now, considering that I'm a woman of some substance, acquainted with symphonies, sonnets, and Socrates, and therefore should not be troubled by the inconsequential fact that my stomach tends to obscure a clear view of my knees, which it wouldn't if I weighed what I wanted to weigh. I definitely should be over this by now. But I'm still denying myself the pleasures of eating. I'm still pureeing potions of yogurt and kale. I'm still abjuring chocolate, except when I'm cheating. I'm still buying every damn diet book that's for sale. And I'm still getting a pulse racing every morning to read the day's verdict on my bathroom scale, when I really should be over this by now.
Pat, I have a question for you. Excuse me.
Yes.
You had mentioned about screen sharing some pictures. Would you still like to do that?
Well, yeah, if Donna can put on page, on Nearing 90.
Yep, if you tell her what to do, I think she's ready.
Okay.
Yes.
Donna, you know what else? I would love it if somebody had something they wanted to say right after the poem was read. If we could do that, I think it would be more interactive. What do you think, Mark?
If you want to do that, you're going to have to give me time to mute everyone again so that they don't interrupt you. And there are 55 people on the call.
Forget it. I hope people will make a note if you have something that you'd like to share, and I would really love to hear that. Our next poem is called Nearing 90. And at the beginning of each, you can see on the screen, it says, someone's name and a line from them. She does that at the beginning of every poem. And it's Stephen Sondheim's I'm Still Here. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with a senior moment, I can't remember her name, singing that song, I'm Still Here. I'm past my sell-by date. I hate to contemplate that soon self-driving cars will rule the road. My social network skills are whatever less than nil is, and I still can't get my phone on airplane mode. This world of drone and bot confuses me a lot. The next big thing will just make me perspire. Ambition's ship has sailed, and I rarely get derailed by fervid fantasies of wild desire. But life's crown is old age, so I won't slink off the stage. Although not always with it, I'm still here. And since I plan to stay, the role I hope to play is Queen Elizabeth. It's not King Lear. Oh, so we move on to telling my age. Chinese proverb, the woman who tells her age is either too young to have anything to lose or too old to have anything to gain. I used to really enjoy telling people my age for the shameless pleasure of hearing everyone say, "You're kidding. I don't believe it. That's amazing. I'm fainting with shock." Plus allusions to the picture of Dorian Gray. But now that no one is feigning or thinking I'm kidding or being amazed or insisting that what I'm saying couldn't be true, I'm done. I'm finished. It's over. Forget about it. I am through with telling my age. Which reminds me of an old friend who, when people stopped saying it's amazing, she would lie about her age and say she was 10 years older so she could still hear, "That's amazing." Now we go on to right now. Walt Whitman said, "Happiness not in another place, but this place. Not for another hour, but this hour." Right now, I'm not really thinking that my knee replacement needs a knee replacement, or my grandson might actually marry that awful girl, or maybe it's time to switch from stocks to gold bars. Right now, I'm not really thinking about comparative retirement communities or the speed at which the polar ice caps are melting, or why they're letting people our age still drive cars. Right now, I'm not resenting the fact that I'm wide awake this early in the morning after yet another insomniac at night, because outside my bedroom window, streams of rosy light are slowly spilling across the undarkening sky, while the sun blazes into being at the horizon and there's nothing else to think about, nothing else to know, nothing else I need to know right now. God bless you, Judith Viorst. And here we are, the Crestwood Village Retirement Community for some of us. He is trying not to think of his new home as death's waiting room. But now and then the phrase leaps into his mind. Despite how alert and charming and attractive his fellow inmates, residents seem, when encountered at the exercise class, the swimming pool, the book group, the dining hall, or at any of the many other well-attended offerings of the Crestwood Village Retirement Community, to which he has retired, having lost his wife, sold his house, and practiced triage on a lifetime of treasured possessions in order to be able to fit his diminished, uncluttered self into a handsome, sunlit two-bedroom apartment in the popular independent living unit of the Crestwood Village Retirement Community, which also somewhere in another building houses all of its less than lively residents who have moved from independent to assisted, continuous, urgent, final care, and who will never again be encountered at the exercise class, pool, book group, or dining hall, where, dressed in a navy blue blazer and making friends to his left and his right, he is thinking that if this is indeed death's waiting room, death is damn well going to have to wait. Oh, here's just another funny one. Haha, not funny. Stanley Kunitz says at the beginning of this, touch me and remind me who I am. And please understand if I get a little teary on this one. She gets on the crowded crosstown bus to visit him once a day. Though there's never a seat and people push and shove you, she goes without complaint or fuss in order to hear him say, I don't know who you are, but I know I love you. I warned you. This is pretty funny. A most viable widower. By the time he's back from the funeral, there's a pile up at his front door of covered dishes, filled with heat and eat meals and topped with notes full of heartfelt wishes to be of service to the grieving widower, who will before long be neither grieving nor widower. In good enough health, new hip, a pacemaker, blood pressure under control, and sufficient sight to keep on driving his car, even in winter and even at night, plus financially secure and not bad looking, he is, we all agree, a most viable widower, able to walk slow, mile, and to dance a slow dance, his mental faculties mostly okay, and no grown children in rehab, unemployed or planning to stay, maybe forever, down in the basement bedroom of the house of this oh so eligible widower, who's hearing there's someone I want you to meet, and getting nonstop invitations to dinner, and seated yet again beside another possible winner of the which of them is going to snag him sweepstakes. And a little too soon he'll remarry, which is no sign of disrespect to his lost late wife. But because time's running out, he's in the November of his life, and because in those sweet years they shared together, he has learned how to be a husband, not a widower. And to continue some of the things that are not on my bucket list, Thornton Wilder said, my advice to you is not to inquire why or whither, but just enjoy your ice cream while it's on your plate. I don't plan on fearlessly riding a camel across the desert sands. I don't plan on running a marathon up in Boston. I don't plan on reading Proust in French, nor do I have any plans to be playing acoustic guitar at a bar down in Austin. I don't plan on casting off manners and start saying whatever I please. I don't plan on zipping on zip lines over abysses. Abysses? I don't plan on taking a course in conversational Japanese or allowing myself to succumb to adulterous kisses. I don't plan on being the oldest student at Harvard Medical School or suiting up for some under-the-sea expedition. I don't plan on piercing my labia or places equally cool or exploring the meaning of life in the lotus position. I don't plan on writing a book that is unostentatiously profound. I don't plan on getting into competitive rowing. I just plan on planting some tulip bulbs, hoping to still be around when the tulips start growing. Lunch with Shirley. D.H. Lawrence said, the living moment is everything. So sometimes I wake in the morning and I'm thinking that this could turn out to be my last day on earth. So I better start savoring every precious moment, every single precious blessed moment, each and every relentlessly precious, relentlessly blessed moment of what could turn out to be my last day on earth. This is very exhausting. So I'm thinking today, I'll just have lunch with Shirley and we'll share the Caesar salad and the shrimp and talk through our decaf espressos about everything and nothing, nothing and everything. Our marriages, thinning hair, gun control, the grandchildren, how many times we get up to pee at night, the coming election, our book club selection, whether this lipstick's too bright, and does eating a pickle really help with leg cramps? We'll bitch a little and laugh a lot and gossip more than we should, trusting they're nothing it isn't safe to say. And I'm thinking that lunch with Shirley on an ordinary day would not be a bad way to spend my last day on earth. And finally, not especially spiritual. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, it is one of the blessings of old friends that you can afford to be stupid with them. When my oldest friend Phyllis was dying, I went to visit her. Holding her hand as I sat by her hospice bed, is there anything final, I asked, that we should be talking about? Probably not, she answered, shaking her head. Why don't we just forget about final anythings and count the number of guys we've slept with instead? So we laughed, sighed, cringed, and counted our way up to how many? None of your business, till we were done. Not especially spiritual, but such fun. Whoa. So I hope that you have found her work as poetic, as touching, as funny as I did. A lot of life lessons for me in her work. Thank you for being here to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat, if you would like, we could have conversation now. It might be a little hectic, but
let's try it, Mark.
We can unmute everybody.
I said this was going to be not an hour, so I wanted to leave room for conversation if that's what people would like, or take a breath.
Well, I think that's really
Are
inspiring.
we raising our hand?
Could I suggest that, Mark, if you act as the host, that people could raise their hands?
Okay.
And then you could call on them so it wouldn't be people talking over one another?
Unfortunately, I cannot undo.
Pat, I'll act as host because I can
Yeah.
control
I've
who's
also
muted
been-
and who's not. So
Yeah, that's why I was just going
give
to.
Thank
me
you.
1 moment and I'll mute everyone again because I just unmuted everyone. And then if people can use
Right.
either the chat window to post a comment or a question, or in the participant list, if you want to raise your hand, we'll unmute people one at a time.
I see Vicki Kramer has her hands up. Hello, Vicki. Are you unmuted?
No, give me a minute. You got to give me a minute to mute everyone and then unmute everyone. That's how this process works. It takes time.
Apology. Thank you very much.
Well, Pat, I must say I'm.
Mark, I muted you because you guys told me to mute everybody. Let me get you unmuted.
Okay. Sorry, I was just trying to give Donna some time, but I was going to say that each one of those poems meant something to me. So great selections.
Vicki. Donna, can you unmute Vicki? Or Vicki, you can
I've got iPhone Grands unmuted.
That's me. That's me, Pat. And it is so wonderful to see you. And this book is just such a wonderful choice. And just, a wonderful, just wonderful stuff to share. I remember reading the one about 40 or 50 or something.
I can't
Probably.
believe I'm 40, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So, but anyway, so I especially found much of it touching, and I love the humor, whether it's about weight or nursing homes or all the things we suffer through and enjoy. And I love enjoying the ice cream. And just thank you so much for sharing it, and just great to see you.
Thank you. I want to add that she was in her middle 50s when she wrote Necessary Losses. And I think she got a lot smarter when she's 89. She and I are just the same age. I think she's 6 months older than me. And how come I didn't get that famous? Can you, Vicki, do you know how to unmute yourself? If you press down on the space bar and hold it, that unmutes you.
I've removed the ability for people to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. Vicki Kramer wants to be unmuted.
I will try and find Vicki Kramer in our list. It's not alphabetical.
Well, if I have the gallery view, she disappeared now.
I think Bill Carr, you've got a question. I've tried to unmute you, but you might have yourself muted. You might need to give permission to your microphone.
Pat?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good.
Hi, Bill.
I would like to compliment you on your enunciation. I'm having hearing problems, and I can understand everything you said.
Oh.
And I would like to think that goes back to your time in North Carolina, where you had to speak clearly for them to understand you. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct.
Good,
They
good
didn't
for you.
understand Yankee.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see.
Donna, Paula knew.
Vicki Kramer has her hand up.
Oh, does she? Okay.
Well, she might be raising her hand in the video, but she didn't have her hand raised. It doesn't bring you to the top of my list to unmute unless you use the raise hand function. But Vicki's unmuted now.
Okay, Pat, it's wonderful to see you. I knew Pat back in the early days of the women's movement when I was at Options for Women. And this is the reason I'm here today, which was to hear you and see you. But I have loved being introduced to this wonderful book, and I can't wait to get a hold of it and share it with my friends.
I would also recommend reading Necessary Losses. It's really an excellent read.
Thank you.
I see Paula.
Yeah.
Bastia's unmuted now.
Oh, hi. So this is Bonnie. Yabasi is my Yiddish name, and I do a lot of Yiddish Zooming. So a couple things. I love the loss of our younger selves. And I love when a friend of mine, and it might have even been Ruth, who's on here now, took a photo of me, and somehow it was a little muted, and I couldn't see my wrinkles. And I mean, those are just, they're just such great photos. I mean, I look at myself, I don't really necessarily, I see the wrinkles on my face, but not necessarily on my body. But then when I see a picture of me in shorts, I say, what is that? So anyway, so I appreciate those distant shots. It's the distant shots. So that's number one. So I thought that was really great, you know, the loss of our younger selves. And the viable widower. So I had an uncle who got divorced when he was 80, had a miserable marriage. And finally at 80, he got divorced. And when we met the family, met the new lady friend who he ultimately married, I think when he was 85. She was somebody in her hairdressers fixed them up. And she said he was the first man that she met that didn't have food spots on his clothing. And she knew he was going to be a winner.
Oh.
My uncle was very dapper, and he lived until his 90s. And my grandmother, I think you mentioned something about adding 10 years to her age. My grandmother did that. She always added 10 years. So people say, oh, you look so young. So you made sure she looked young.
Yes. Yes.
And also I had the book, and I've gone through, and I know I gave it away, but I had It's Hard to Be Hip Over 30.
Yeah.
I mean, this was one of her, I think the original book that she wrote.
Probably.
Which I don't even think you can buy on Amazon anymore. So, but somebody has my book. So anyway, but I appreciated all of this, and the one about talking about how many men they slept with, you know, on the woman's deathbed, I thought was fabulous.
Yes.
So I thought
We should only do such a thing. I wanted to add to the most viable widower. I have a friend who taught me women mourn and men remarry. And there's a hand up there. I see it's Vicky. Vicky, I wish you could just unmute yourself, Vicky. I can't do it. I don't have any power.
Yeah, I wasn't able to unmute myself. I think Mark has to.
No, I have to do it. I'm
Oh,
a tech.
Do it. Oh, okay. I
Mark
understand.
doesn't have control. Patricia's
thought
unmuted right now.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I would like to say that I enjoyed it very, very much, each and every poem. I'm not near 90, but I felt identified, myself identified with lots of things that the poems mentioned. So I felt them very close to myself. And the second thing I would like to say is that I knew that this was the topic, that nearing 90 was the book. And when I realized that Pat was going to speak, I thought, oh, there must have been a last minute change, because Pat cannot be near 90. I mean,
Pat is going to be 89 in April.
Well, I mean, of course I believe you because you are telling me, but it's, you look great, you sound great. It's so lovely to hear you. And well, there was no mistake, it was you.
Thank you. And what I wish for you, Patricia, is that you get to be near 90. You should live and be well.
But I want to be like you. If I get to that age, I want to be like you.
Thank you. Vicky is still trying to say something. I wish she could find you, Vicky. I don't have any power.
Vicky Kramer, I've tried to unmute you a couple times. You need to accept to activate your microphone. It looks like maybe you're unmuted now.
I am unmuted, but I haven't been trying to say something. So
Oh, it looks like your hand is up.
No, it's not. I don't think so.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
I think Paula, you had your waving at your
Yes.
camera.
Yes, I wanted to know if you know anything about Judith Viorst's place in life. Did her husband pass away? Did
No.
she remarry? Do you know
They are-
anything of that?
She's been married forever. She has 3 sons. As far as I know, they're both in good health.
Oh, okay.
That's I'm sure I would see if I read the obituaries. I mean, my routine in the morning is the cryptograms and the obits.
She could have added a poem called The Obituaries.
Yes, maybe we'll ask her to do it when she's nearing 100.
Michelle Brogan, if you want to activate your microphone. There you go.
Pat, thank you so much. I mean, they're all wonderful, and every week they just get better and better. And I love ending the week this way. But this was wonderful, and I was wondering, do you ever use any of her readings in your chaplain work?
I haven't done chaplain work now for 2 years, more, 5 years. When my husband got sick, not sick, when he needed me, I stopped everything.
Mhm.
And so I haven't gone back because after that, it was a series of things that happened to people in their 80s.
Yeah.
You know, from a knee replacement, I've laughed about that poem with the knee replacement, needing a knee replacement, because my knee is bothering me, the new knee. And so I haven't gotten back, but it's an idea. And if I ever do it again, my thought is if I garner the energy, I'm going to volunteer at McGee Rehab
Ah.
because my husband had an amputation.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a lot to offer.
This would also be great for hospice, you know, anybody in those stages, because they're just so powerful and so positive. It really, they were wonderful. And I'm so glad to have been introduced to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Haskell, if you want to go ahead.
Jean,
Yes, hi, Pat.
hello, Jean.
It's you and I have shared a lot of those adventures
Yes, we have.
way. I can remember some very specifically funny times. And it's wonderful to hear you reading Judith Viorst, who is an absolute favorite of mine. And always one of my readers comes up with of Judith Viorst something or other. So she is universal, I think, in her appeal to all ages and all people. So it was just wonderful to hear you sharing your feelings about her and the reading. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pauline, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought your selection was both tearful and humorous at the same time, and it did bring tears to my eyes when it brought tears to your eyes. It's really wonderful seeing you again after all these years, and I'm going to buy this book because I just think what you read from was just beautiful, and I want to thank you.
Judith Viorst will thank you as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. I don't see anyone else waving at the camera. Oh, wait, here we go, Connie. I think, Connie, you've got to activate your microphone for us.
Hi. I just want to thank you like everybody else. And I personally cannot wait to go out and get the book. I never think of myself as nearing 90, even though I am. And so I thought I would listen to this just to see how I could not relate to it. And I related to every single reading. They all seem very personal to me. The Replaced Knee and so many of the others. And I just want to thank you for choosing this book. It was a real eye-opener.
Much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, looks like we've got Greta.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Greta and husband.
Yes, I'm Dan. Two things. I thought it was very good to have the poems up on the screen because you could really see how beautiful she handles rhyme. It was to see the layout. It was wonderful. The story about having people always tell you that you're younger, that you don't look as old as you really are.
Yes.
I had a very dramatic lesson in that the other day. There's a shoe shine stand in the Reading terminal where I used before the pandemic. I would get my shoes done.
I remember that. Yeah.
And there's this guy there who said something. I'm in my mid-70s, mid to late 70s. A few more days where I can say I'm in my mid-70s, then on August 10th I'll be in my late 70s. Anyway, this guy said something which stimulated me to say, well, how old do you think I am? Fully expecting him to say, oh, I don't know, maybe 65. And he looked at me and he said, I don't know, 82?
You better be careful.
So that was the end. I don't do that anymore.
Good. That's good.
I really love the poems too.
Yeah, they
were great.
Wonderful. And you read them beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I feel privileged. Who was it that just said, I don't think I'm old enough? It was Connie. I hope this comes out okay. I feel so lucky, so blessed to be 88 years old and I'm still walking and talking and I'm okay. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And I like to tell people how old I am. And hardly anybody ever says, oh, really? I might start saying I'm older. I have a funny story of a friend of mine's grandmother was turning 100. And he said, I'm going to call that guy on television who announces 100-year-olds. She said, you'll do no such thing. He said, why not, Graham? She said, well, you know, I married Max a few years ago, and he thought I was 80. But I was really 90. I told him I was 80. Now I can't let him know I'm 100. He thinks I'm going to be 90. That was a good one.
Thank you for saying that. It, you know, like that feeling. If I don't look in the mirror, I'm convinced I'm sweet 16.
Yes.
And yet I do get up in the morning, thankful that I've reached this age, even though I don't want to admit it. And I've got so many ailments, but then I look around and I say, okay, I got up. And I guess this book is very appropriate for me, although I didn't think it would be.
Well, welcome.
And that's not a bad thing.
No.
It's not a bad thing. It actually made me feel really good because, okay, I'm not the only one who feels this way and the only one who has the conversation with someone who is dying, but talking about good things, because that's happened. So I really loved this day.
Oh, good. So glad. I'm so glad.
Pat, I'd just like to make one quick comment. I believe that the name you were trying to think of was Elaine Stritch.
That's the one. Thank you. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
love that song. And I don't know if anybody ever saw it, but they did. She was on PBS, some kind of a show that featured her. She talked about embodiment of life. This woman is so incredible.
I bet you could get it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Elaine Stritch.
Yes.
Still here.
Yeah.
I bet you.
Yes.
Could do it there.
Yes. She is she's just amazing. And that song, Ladies Who Lunch, and I'm Still Here, I love her.
Yes. Yes.
So, Pat, I'll leave you with one last, this is a true story. So about 8 years ago, my husband and Brian and I helped his parents move into Simpson House at the independent living. And after the furniture came in and everything, right about 3 o'clock, the door started to get knocking. And it was women bringing brownies to his father, except he was still married and his wife was in the living room. So
That's great. They call it the Brisket Brigade.
is that what it's called?
Yeah. Anyway.
So anyhow.
Thank you all again. It was my pleasure to do this.